the discussion of the civil penalty, however, and give you a little bit of history statewide, what's taken place. I think that might be helpful to you. In terms of since the beginning of the CTR program, the civil penalty has only been imposed twice statewide, and that was in Spokane County. And the first time that it was imposed with the employer, they gave the money back to the employer to use to do their CTR program with. And the second time, I'm not exactly sure what they did with the money, but I know for sure the first time. Here in our area, our area, we did have a situation this past year where one of our federal employers in the city of Vancouver was very resistant in participating. And as you probably know, a lot of times federal agencies have sovereignty. And so they didn't think that they needed to participate. But they talked with their attorneys and the state attorneys, and they discovered that they did indeed need to participate. We were one step away from beginning to impose civil penalties. In terms of imposing civil penalties on Washougal employers, that's not done by me or at all. It's done by your jurisdiction. And so Mitch, being your jurisdictional representative for CTR, would be the one to process that and move that on. The advantage of having a reasonable civil penalty is just like the reason that there's a reasonable fine if you speed. It's to encourage people to do what they're supposed to do, and then impose that stick, if you may, if they don't. And so it's just hardly ever been used. Employers see the need to comply, and there's very little. It's a nominal fee on the employer to participate. Honestly, it costs them really typically little out of pocket unless they choose to do a subsidy or something like that.
How long has the program been in place?
Since 1991.
Since 1991. And I guess so just now we're getting to a point where it's being mandated on the cities to adopt this, is that correct?
No, it's actually, the cities have always had to, if you were affected, you always had to participate in this. Okay. The reason that this is coming to the table now is that the original law, the CTR law, sunsetted. And Keith, jump in if I'm saying anything wrong, okay? Okay. The original law sunsetted, and so in 2006, the legislature unanimously adopted changes to the CTR law, calling it the CTR Efficiency Act. And the purpose was to make it more efficient and more targeted. And so prior to this change, if a county had 150,000 or more citizens, the county was affected by the law, the original law. With the CTR Efficiency Act, what changed that was hours of congestion on state corridors. And so that's how, and so the urban growth areas that were affected by that, they then had to participate. And Mitch, you were telling me that
we're contiguous with the I-5 corridor, which triggers that.
And so, and because your affected employer, Pendleton Woolen Mills, is in your jurisdiction, you have to participate in the program.
I guess one of the concerns is that the legislature moves at some point to tighten the rules and the regulations on the CTR program, making it so that more have to comply, or there are more stringent regulations that will force us then to have to get into a fining situation down the road.
Actually, let me just give you an overview of what the employer has to do. That might be helpful. Mm-hmm. First of all, since the beginning of the program, it's an employer is affected by the law if they have 100 or more employees that have to report to work between 6 and 9 a.m. And they also, I'm sorry? Per work site. Those employees have to work at least 35 hours a week and at least 2 weekdays. And also it has to be a 12-month work site. That's why schools are exempted, for example. And then what they have to do, and actually this, we've actually made it somewhat easier with the changes with the ordinance. We decided we want to make it a little bit easier on the employer actually, and the new CTR ordinance gave us a little more flexibility to do that. And so what they have to do, what the employer has to do, is they have to, how we judge whether they're in compliance with the laws, whether or not they're making a good faith effort. It's not based on how their employees respond. They have to have an employee transportation coordinator appointed. They have to post that information. They have to survey the employees every other year. They have to provide an annual report and program. and they just have to have 2 elements in their program, like bike lockers, carpool program, showers. There's a variety of elements. And they just have to participate in trainings and meetings and stuff that are made available. So actually, there is not much burden placed on the employer at all.
Do you know how much, all those things that you just outlined, how much that is costing business per year to comply with those?
You know, it really depends on what the business chooses to do. There's a degree of in-kind contribution when the employee transportation coordinator comes to a training that we provide. We have every other month we have a network meeting, and they come, we provide lunch for them if they come to the lunch meeting, and that's about 1.5 hours of their time every other month. The employer can choose to have a CTR element that would include a subsidy. So of course at that point there's more cash outlay, but very few of our employers in the Clark County area do, and Washougal does not have any. Most of them probably already have a bike rack. It's easy to have a carpool program. We provide a lot of material. We provide carpool parking signs. We provide a lot of things as a result of coming together and pulling the money together. So other than some hidden costs, I guess, in terms of labor, when you actually do the surveys or something like that, it's not much at all on the employer. Mm-hmm.
What's the state's rationale for imposing this on us?
Keith?
I didn't catch that question.
What's the state's rationale for imposing this on Washougal, or on the state in general, I would guess?
Well, I guess I go back to the original legislative intent in 1991, and really there's 3 state goals that the state has with the commuter reduction program. It's reducing traffic congestion, reducing air quality, or increasing air quality by reducing emissions, and conserving energy. And you know, back in '91, the legislature found that by partnering with employers and looking at commute trips and offering options to employees, it was a good way to advance those goals. And you know, based on the legislative support for the program, I'd say they continue to see those 3 goals as very important for the state, and want to work in partnership with local governments and employers to make that happen.
And yet you don't require that any of these things happen. You simply require the bureaucratic process that might make them possible. Do you have any studies that indicate how successful the program's been since 1991?
He wants to know if you have any studies that show how successful the program has been since 1991.
Definitely. We do a legislative report every 2 years. So we have, you know, reports going back to 1995, I believe. And we just submitted our latest report to the legislature a few weeks ago.
And what does it say about the 3 goals?
What does it say about the 3 goals?
It says we're making great progress. We actually did some modeling in terms of congestion and found that the program itself in the Central Puget Sound region saves about $100 million a year for the region due to you know, less time spent in traffic, less time idling and wasting fuel. We found that the program is helping to reduce both criteria pollutants that are regulated as well as non-regulated pollutants such as greenhouse gases. We found that it's helping to save fuel and improving sort of the commuters, lowering commuters' personal costs in terms of savings and fuel costs.
Modeling is based on assumptions. Would you care to share